The following podcast is brought to you by the Johners Podcasting Network, found exclusively at wrestlingwithjohners.com. Hello and welcome to the latest episode of Wrestling with Johners, episode 293. And I've had a bit of an absence from the podcast. I've been out on a cruise across the Mediterranean with my lovely wife, celebrating our 20th wedding anniversary. I know I don't look old enough, but it's good to be back in the saddle. And what a fantastic guest I've got for a Thursday evening. None other than the TIDAL Championship Wrestling champion. Your TIDAL chief, ladies and gentlemen, none other than Ace Matthews. Ace, great to have you on the Wrestling with Johners podcast. How are you doing, my friend?
Hello. Thank you for having me on. Excellent intro video, by the way. I've only ever listened to you, so I haven't seen the little graphic, and that is fantastic. But yeah, I'm doing well. I've lost my voice a little bit, as you can probably hear, but otherwise, I'm in good spirits. Thank you.
Well, I appreciate you coming on, and even also with a bit of a croaky throat. You've lost your voice today, but we are honoured to have you on the show. And first of all, for anybody out there that's watching live, want to get in touch with the show and want to reach out to Ace Matthews and send us your questions live on Wrestling with Johners, you can do. Just ping them through to us using your chosen device. They'll come through to us and we'll do our very best to bring up all the questions live on air. We've had some questions come through before going live tonight. We've had one or two drop in already, and we'll do our very best to bring them up at the appropriate time, of course. But Ace, I've got to ask you, and certainly over the last 12 months or so, probably even more recent than that, you've kind of dropped onto a lot of people's radar, certainly with what you've been up to with TIDAL, certainly with what you've been up to with 1PW, and we'll get into all of that in great detail. But when you think about, I mean, you've been in the business, I think this is your 8th year in professional wrestling, maybe even longer, and we can kind of go into a bit more detail soon. But when you think about the last 12 months or so and the rise that you've had and coming onto a lot more people's radars, branching out quite a bit more, you must be pretty pleased with how the last 12 months or so have gone for you.
Yeah, it's been absolutely mad for me. Sorry, there was a little bit of a lag between hearing you and then you saw the rest of you delivering that. And yeah, so sorry. For me, the last 12 months, this year, in fact, itself has been, awesome for me, pretty much from coming back from lockdown, sort of after the COVID gap. I think that's where, for me, wrestling has really picked up, especially on like a more mainstream independent level. The last 12 months, definitely. I mean, this year, outside of times where I've been doing camp show runs, this has been my busiest year. I think I've been working almost every weekend somewhere, mostly in sort of the north of England. It's just really fun to be out and about, and for people to get to see my character and hopefully start to get the character. Most of the time they dislike my character, which is fine. But also sort of the point. So as long as it's bringing joy in some small way, that's pretty much what it's about.
Absolutely. And I'm going to bring it with some pictures here, and look at this guy here with the big gold belt, the TIDAL Championship Wrestling title, of course. And another one of you there looking a bit worse for wear, still with the gold over his shoulder. Add a bit of context there, Ace. Add a bit of context because you normally you're happy, smiley, bubbly, with your thumb up to the camera. There it's completely the opposite, looking like you've gone through the ringer just a bit there, Ace. But to add a bit of context to that picture in particular.
That picture was after defeating Scotty Rourke, as I'd expect I would do. Defending my second title defense. Scotty Rourke has been a bit of a thorn in my side across many promotions. However, sort of battered and bloody, I managed to be victorious against him. I mean, the sort of guy he is, he kicked a steel chair into my face. And despite that, I was still able to overcome the odds and defeat him with no help from anybody at all. So that was straight after coming back. Tony Knox took that photo, and yeah, it's one of my favorite photos, despite how I look in it.
I'm going to bring up that picture again. It's a great picture. Like, so usually you're happy, go lucky, smiley, thumb up to the camera. Not so much in that picture. Not so much in that picture. But I want to talk to you a little bit about TIDAL Championship Wrestling. Just TIDAL, as it's more commonly known, because it's been a big part of your career. You've been in business for about 8 years now, and I think for the last 7, on and off, you've been wrestling for TIDAL, and even more so recently, Ace. So considering your long history with that group in particular, and to finally become their champion back end of last year, we'll talk about kind of how you got to that moment. But as an individual, as a performer, that must have been a pretty high point for you and a proud moment.
Yeah, it was. So in terms of championships, that was my second championship and biggest championship that I'd won. But just to be considered on that level and to be put at that level at the top of the bill, and to have that recognition of the character and how I was doing as a wrestler, as a performer, yeah, it was awesome. And hopefully that's something that I can use to step forward and to show more people who I am, what I can do, and hopefully where we can go next with it. But yeah, it was awesome.
Yeah, absolutely. And like I say, getting to the top in TIDAL has not been without its challenges. It's not been without its stumbling blocks. And like I say, I mean, I don't think that your character would have it any other way, to be honest with you. But it's been full of challenges. But you did get there, and I think it was at now, which show was it exactly? I do have the details here.
It was November last year. I don't remember the name of the show.
No, but you won a match where you won the TIDAL contract, which entitled you to cash in on the championship match, and that's exactly what you did. There's some pictures of yourself and a none too pleased Brady Phillips there, the former champion. But talk us through the proceedings of that day, and for anybody that might not be too familiar with TIDAL or yourself or what happened that evening, talk us through the series of events that got you to the championship gold.
So that was the final show that was run by the previous owner. And so I'd been featured quite a lot on his shows, so sort of throughout my career, but even more so coming back from lockdown. And that show there, I came and I had a #1 contendership match with HT Drake, which was to be a ladder match to win the contract for a championship opportunity.
Yeah.
When we got to the venue, there were no ladders for a ladder match that had been announced and advertised. There were some I don't know the name of the ladders the ones that you wouldn't see in wrestling, ones that are just one side, that if I tried to climb up, I'd just keep falling and I'd fall straight.
You'd need a wall. Yes, you'd need a wall to prop them up
against. I would need a wall, and
there are no you weren't doing any decorating there, Ace, were you?
But we did find one small step ladder. And so, yeah, I think that was absolutely perfect. We had to go with that, and had possibly the most ridiculous ladder match anyone's ever seen. And the finish of which is probably the most perfect finish of any match I'll ever have, and quite possibly that anyone's ever had before. Whereas I was reaching up as high as I could from this tiny ladder, HT Drake came and pushed me off, knocking me through a table that had been set up in the corner of the ring. He tried to reach and couldn't, so was trying to knock it down with the contract down with the broom handle. Hit the contract too hard, and the contract came flying down. And as I was laid sprawled in this table, it landed right in my hand.
Oh,
So as I
fantastic.
stood up, I mean, skillfully, I positioned myself as I knew I was being knocked off in the place that I thought would be most mathematically realistic for where this contract were to fall if I wasn't able to get up in time. So, I mean, it was all my doing, but perfect, absolutely perfect finish for that. And so, yeah, I didn't want to take any chances. And at the end of an epic match between Brady Phillips and Will Cruz, as they were both knackered, just, I thought, this is my time.
There you go. There you go. And like I say, you wouldn't expect any less from Ace Matthews. A few people that have got in touch that are watching us live, and certain Taj.
Secret
Thank you for
Showdown,
watching, Taj.
November. There you go.
Boo, says Taj. There you go. And it's only coming up, Facebook user, but hello, my friend. Keep up the good work from Marty Jones, British wrestling legend, watching live. So thank you for watching, Marty, former guest on my Legends Masterclass and a good friend. But yes, thank you for watching, Marty. Yes, Taj reminds us that it was the 27th of November, the Secret Showdown. I did have that on my notes, but neglected to read that. And a Facebook user said an absolute brutal ladder match, one of the best ladder matches since TLC, to be honest. Not as good as WeLC.
I like Facebook user. I like Facebook user.
And if you are watching live via Facebook, simply go to streamyard.com/Facebook. Only if you're watching Facebook Live, streamyard.com/Facebook, if I can get my words out, and that will allow us to see your icon picture and your name on screen. For some reason, unless you do that, we can't see your name and your icon picture. And we've got Wrestling Jeebus watching us live via YouTube. Seen Ace live many times this year, and he's always absolutely killed it. Wonderful to see him having so much success this year. He absolutely deserves it. Thank you very much, Wrestling Jeebus, and thank you to everybody that's watching and that's got in touch with us so far. But we're going back to that win against Brady Phillips, and I don't know whether this is some kind of dodgy edit, but I saw a social video, and the fans went absolutely crazy when you won. They were chanting, "You deserve it, you deserve it." And that was at least the version that I saw, Ace. And the fans inside that room were definitely on your side that evening.
They always are. I mean, they are the greatest fans. I mean, my fans are the best fans, anyone could ever ask for. And I mean, every single time I'm there, I mean, the roof nearly falls off just with the excitement about when I'm there. And I do agree with them. I did deserve it. I do deserve it. I am their forever champion. And in fact, I'm pretty sure it was them that I heard some rumblings in the crowd of, yeah, that's our title chief. He's our title chief. And to be honest, as a secret, that's where the moniker came from.
There we go. Yeah, and it fits perfectly. But you mentioned your match against Scotty Rourke, where you did get busted open, and I think that was either your second, maybe your first or second title defense. And then you went on to have a match at Pour Some Shug on Me against British legends. One of the most fiercest guys on the UK scene, Rampage Brown, of course, in a if Ace gets DQ'd or counted out, that he will lose the championship. And so, dare I say it, maybe some shenanigans at the end there with a slightly biased or dodgy referee and some fast counting and a low blow as well. But we get to face individuals like Scotty Rourke and Rampage Brown, defending your championship against such extraordinary talent such as that, Ace. Not a bad way to spend a Saturday or a Sunday afternoon in the ring, is it really?
No, it's absolutely brilliant. I mean, they're both two of the very best wrestlers. I mean, Scotty Rourke is going to absolutely fly this year. Next year, he's going to be absolute megastar. And Rampage, I would personally consider the best in the UK and Europe. He's absolutely incredible. He's someone I've known for a while. I've trained with him before. I've wrestled him a couple of times before. He is scared of me. He wouldn't admit it, but he does have a little bit of fear for me, and that match showed why. But yeah, it was an honor to get to wrestle both of them. I don't imagine that I'll probably be facing Scotty Rourke around the corner somewhere or the other, because he just follows me around. Yeah.
No doubt. Somebody you've got a lot of history with, and I think he's going to come up one or two more times during the course of this interview. But I was recording an episode of the Progress Hype Show with Mr. Mike Mad Dog Angus, and he said one of his highlights of yourself was possibly after that Rampage Brown match, where did Rampage Brown kind of knock you out? Were you flat out in the ring? And they even conducted bingo whilst the raffle whilst you were prone, motionless in the ring. Is that right, Ace?
I'm going to be on with it. Honestly, I've got no recollection of
course you wouldn't.
Anything you've just mentioned.
That's the rumor. That's what Mike Mad Dog Angus told me anyway.
He probably wants to be around me that much. That's probably where he's coming from, I think.
Oh, fantastic. A few more people that have got in touch, and we got the Peckham Playboy Hakan. Now, he actually sent an earlier message saying he'd like to have a match with you. He think it would be a banger, but he says he hasn't seen too much of your work. He's the other side of the country, but would definitely be a huge banger yourself and play the Peckham Playboy Hakan. But there we go. Maybe Hakan will check you out on YouTube and see what you're capable of, but that would no doubt be a fantastic match for sure. Simon, I will burn Art Herring, our Tidal chief, of course, and there we go. Simon again. He remembers when Scotty Rourke kicked your head off at 1PW, and we're going to talk about 1PW very, very soon.
I don't remember that.
Another occasion that you may not remember, but let's talk a bit about 1PW then. And I've actually got, wow, what timing! I've actually got that picture right there. But you did. But first of all, being involved with 1PW from its relaunch last October last year, I don't know if you were a fan of 1PW from back in the day. But a lot of talent that have performed on that show said that they were. But is it a promotion that you maybe watched as a fan or have gone back and revisited over recent years?
It is mostly over recent years. It was something that I remember reading about more than seeing. I think I read Greg Lambert wrote a book. He wrote a couple of books. And that's where I first came across there. And then when I started training, got a load of DVDs from the training school to watch them back there. And then again, it's resurged now that it's come back now as it is. But yeah, it's an absolute massive honor to be involved in that. I mean, obviously, apparently I'm not involved on Saturday. We'll see about that. But yeah, just to be sort of spoken in the same breath as a lot of the guys on there, and just the name of the 1PW brand is huge. And yeah, for me, that's a massive achievement for me.
Yeah. And you were involved in that match, I think, pitting Scotty Rourke and several other incredible UK talent at a new Twist of Fates from October of last year. But to go out there, the Doncaster Dome, I think there was probably 1,500 plus people. So an electric crowd, an incredible occasion, kind of a bit of a historic occasion for UK wrestling, considering your 1PW's history and coming back with such a stacked card and such a packed arena. And like I say, it's kind of in your neck of the woods, kind of the north. But tell us how it felt. You must have felt, as a wrestling fan, like I say, that kind of was a very special moment for you, and to get out there to perform as a talent as well.
It was. It was terrifying. It was pretty. Going out in front of there to speak to everybody, to enter the match. Just to be billed alongside those guys and alongside everyone else on the card was excellent. But going out there was the most nervous I've been in a long time. I wasn't very nervous for very long. As soon as I got out there, just the reaction from everybody was absolutely amazing, as it was again in Lincoln on their last show as well. They didn't like me very much. They are wrong, but the reception I got was nice to know that they had some feelings about me, as people tend to do. Whether they're correct in their feelings or not. But no, it was amazing. That was sort of lucky for me. I took a chance on myself. I pitched an idea for them, and they came back saying, "We can't do that. But how about this?" I was like, "Yes, that sounds good." And yeah, it's that itself gave me, as a person and as a performer, a lot of confidence moving forwards, just knowing that I can have the trust of someone like 1PW to put me out there and to represent their brand. It was incredible.
Yeah, absolutely. And as you mentioned, you were part of their second show, No Turning Back, from Lincoln earlier on this year, doing what Ace Matthews does best, cutting an awesome promo in the ring to mostly boos, I have to say, until Ulf Herman, German hardcore wrestling legend, came down to the ring. It didn't end so well for Ace on that day, but once again, another unforgettable experience for yourself, possibly setting something up for the future.
I mean, yeah, if Ulf thinks he's going to get away with that, then, you know, they brought me into 1PW, and I'm sure I can weasel my way around somewhere and just let him know how I feel about that. I mean, to be fair, I was quite nice to him after the show. I don't remember anything that people have told me since they've happened again. But yeah, I think there might have to be some sort of comeuppance for Ulf. I mean, it's just disappointing that he didn't want to listen to me, and he, you know, what I had to say could have really applied to him, and he could have listened, heeded my words, and been a better wrestler, a better human as a result. But you know,
yeah,
not everything, can you?
But like I say, it sounds like yourself and 1PW have a bit of a future together. So we stay with bated breath to see. You know, you're not scheduled to appear this Saturday, but who knows? And they got other shows already scheduled for later on in the year. And Taj has been in touch again. Thank you, Taj. What advice would you give to someone who wants to be as annoying as you? I'd say not my question, Taj's question there. Sorry about that. Please.
I think she's had an autocorrect in there somewhere. I assume that she meant to say as ace as you, or as awesome as you. And it would be just to believe in yourself, to believe in me. I've got a brand new T-shirt out, which if I stand up slightly, it just sort of stamps my approval on the wearer. It doesn't necessarily mean I approve of you, but you have a better chance of being approved by me. So it would probably be to come and see me, to give me your support, to listen and, you know, observe my actions. And if that's not inspirational enough, then probably popping on one of these T-shirts is going to just push you overboard, and it'll just give you that nudge to send your life in the right direction. Because anyone can be as awesome as me. Anyone could be as ace as me. Not everyone is called ace. But you know what they say, I'm ace and you can be too.
Absolutely. And some more people that we've got in touch, Simon, once again, judging by the crowd reaction you got at the last show, the 1PW crowd will be thrilled to see you if you were to appear this weekend. I'm sure they will.
I can't wait. Yeah, I can't. And they'll probably be chanting my name the whole way through until they give me a call to bring it out.
Absolutely. And apparently her cat is called Ace, and I know that your cat is in the room somewhere as well.
I think she's gone now. Yeah, she's
maybe Taj's cat is named after yourself. But I want to talk to you about you're renowned, and a lot of your kind of skits that you do on your Twitter and on your Instagram are essentially dare I say it, annoying some of the locker room stars. And you know, how about John Morrison there while he's warming up for his match? I think he actually told you that you know, the fan club meet and greet had already happened. He thought you was a fan. Mark and Vicky Haskins, of course, and Tyra Valkyrie, sorry, and of course Rhino. And none of them were particularly thrilled to have you around, Ace. But you just obviously wanting a chance to build that relationship with the big stars. But this is obviously something that Ace does on a regular basis. Give us your kind of thought process behind some of them skits.
It's just fun, isn't it? I figured it was so I started from doing little selfies with people, showing people's reaction once they realise that they're not the most awesome person in the room. And so I thought, we'll push this out and we'll get a little bit more entertaining. We can do videos. And people tend to have a similar reaction. They just get a bit jealous. But everyone seems to be really up for doing the videos just because they find it funny. I mean, as soon as I asked John Morrison, he burst out laughing. It was like, yeah, of course. I mean, he probably expected me to be in the meet and greet, sat next to him, and thought I was late to it. That's what I took from that video.
That's exactly what he was at. Yeah, that's exactly
what he was at. I know. I was too busy with other fans, swamped and sort of my own little meet and greet to get there with him. But you know, next time he's around, I'll make sure I sit next to him and I can bring some over to him as well.
Absolutely. We've touched upon the Ace character and the Ace persona, but it is kind of one of the more interesting personas and character gimmicks, I think, on the UK wrestling scene at the moment, Ace, to be honest with you. And from what I've seen from my research, is based upon a motivational speaking expert or a motivational speaker. But give us a little bit of insight into the inspiration and the motivation behind the character. I'm guessing that it wasn't fully formed or fully fleshed out in your early career. So how did it kind of start and how did it
So it started out when I very first started training. I started training in Hull in New Generation Wrestling with Nathan Cruz. At the time, I was living in America a lot of the time, and I trained over there at Pro Wrestling Revolution. And then once I came back, I always thought I looked a little bit American. I didn't want to do like an American gimmick because I'm not American. But a lot of the experience and the time that I'd spent in sort of I think it was the 5 years leading up to that, I'd been over there. I was a football coach working for a club over there. And outside of my wrestling life, I've always been either a teacher or a football or sports coach. And growing up, I always played a lot of sports and football mostly. So they were sort of the main things that I was taking in to building my character. A sports gimmick's weird. I did have a tag team called Team Sports or Go Team Sports or Ace Athletic. That was myself and Dave Graves. And then we had a couple of extra guys. We had Benji, Super Benji, joined us from the Northeast. There we go. And Miles came and joined for a few shows as well. There you go. Ollie White, I think it was called at the time as well. So we did that. Dave's main sport was rugby, and that was a good fun little run that we had. So I've jumped ahead. To start off with, I was a babyface most of the time that I wrestled. However, despite being able to wrestle and get some sympathy and get people behind me for my wrestling, I'd cut promos. And if you can tell from the way I speak now, anyone who's watching who thinks, wow, he's doing this in character, I am just this dislikable. I've got sort of quite a well-spoken voice, and people just never, I'd finish talking and they go, I just hate you. So I thought, well, you know what? That's a genuine reaction. That's not someone hating me because I'm the bad guy. That's a real reaction. So if I just keep pushing this and keep pushing the guy who thinks he's the good guy, he's got no idea that he's not. And that's the way that I ran with the character, to bring out the motivational speaking, taking some inspiration from Kurt Angle, from Simon Dean, Mr. Perfect, sort of bringing them all together, started coming out with a microphone headset, and just lots of mannerisms that don't scream, I don't like you, but set like a seed inside you of, yeah, this guy's a prick. Was sort of the way that I did. And so it did take a while to build the character to come through. Those photos there that you just showed from 3CW, that was a really good run that we had. Unfortunately, around the time Dave and I started doing quite well as a tag team, and then he did his ACL and I snapped my Achilles, and that put a bit of the brakes on it, and we started coming back again, and COVID happened. But then I think for me, COVID was the best thing for me as a wrestler that could have happened, because it stopped, made me think more about the character, more about engaging people, and also I could get out of bad wrestling habits as well that I'd had. And it was a bit of a reset for everyone. It was a bit of an opportunity for everyone coming out on more of a level footing. And yeah, just from there, it was just exciting to then be coming out of lockdown and getting to wrestle again and getting to see all your friends again and get to see crowds again. And I think that really inspired me just to keep pushing and to get to where the character is now, where I am now, and hopefully keep pushing with both of them. Yeah.
And any thoughts on kind of where or how far the Ace Matthews character can go? Obviously, there's obviously lots of storylines and lots of things you'd like to get involved with as your character. But I'm guessing it's got lots of kind of legs and mileage to kind of take various twists and turns within the development of the Ace Matthews character.
It really does. And that's why it's something I've stuck with, because it's a character that I really do believe in. But it's also a character that a lot of the country hasn't seen yet. And it's something that I really want to try and push out of sort of the North Yorkshire, Northeast scene and allow more people to see. And then hopefully it can sort of progress and transition organically as a result of seeing that and getting the reactions. I mean, the reactions it gets are completely different, different crowds, different types of fans. There's certain fans who are starting to enjoy it because it is entertaining. A lot of fans don't like it because it is annoying. A lot of families don't like it because it's annoying and they just want me to go away so they can see some cool wrestling. But then there's something at True Grit. They seem to like me. I don't know whether it's got anything to do with when Commander Nash and I being best buds up there, but yeah, that's another completely different direction that it's gone in, and I'm definitely the fan favorite there. So
Absolutely. And I want to talk a little bit about the wrestling scene, kind of in your neck of the woods. You mentioned the Northeast and Yorkshire. And of course, we spoke about 1PW, the first two shows taking place in Doncaster and Lincoln, not too far from where you're based. You're based in Hull, I understand, or originate from Hull. But you talk about promotions such as True Grit, based in Leeds, for example, TIDAL up in Huddersfield, BWR in Lincolnshire, NGW around the Hull area, and they perform out of the Hull City Hall on occasions. But I think the wrestling scene in that neck of the woods is growing. It's a very exciting wrestling scene, but for many years, and as you said, you're only just falling onto a lot of people's radar after 8 years. But the scene in your neck of the woods, and certainly some of the locations I've mentioned, have bubbled under the surface for quite a long time, haven't they? But there's a lot of exciting promotions and action to be had.
Yeah, they really have. I mean, if you look at New Generation Wrestling, British Wrestling Revolution, for years they've been drawing massive crowds. I mean, the NGW in particular selling out Hull City Hall for over 1,000 people for several years in a row. And that was every single show at Hull City Hall. I think maybe 4 to 6 shows a year. But again, that's its own bubble. That's a big family-friendly crowd who go there, follow the storylines that are there, follow all the stars that they get to see wrestling there. And it's not necessarily fans that say there are small pockets, and it still is growing, of more the sort of fans that you'd see traveling to other shows and talking about shows on the internet. But the most of that, and again, BWR, is all families. And they're incredibly fun shows to do. So I think that it's something that's been there. But now if you look at the talent pool as well, the homegrown talent pool, if you look at sort of the two probably biggest schools or academies in Yorkshire of BWR's academy, the Evo Academy, and PPW in Sheffield, say it's Nathan Cruz, Matt Myers, Scotty Rourke, who run Evo, and Liam Slater, who runs PPW. There is some absolutely incredible talent. I mean, there was Grapple as well in Leeds, which sort of transitioned. That was Marty Jones, and it's transitioned. That dissolved, that disappeared, and then up popped PPW. But the talent pools that we've got coming through now are absolutely incredible. And you see Reese and Rogan traveling everywhere from BWR. You've had Scott Bell on as well, the referee. Scotty Rourke making waves absolutely everywhere. Then we've got a few new guys. We've got Herman Dan. We've got Jack Maxwell. We've got Vusic, who is absolutely unreal, by the way. He will be an absolute star. Like, he'll be the next Leon Slater sort of.
I need to get that guy on the show. Yeah, I've heard so much about him recently. Yes. Yeah, for sure.
And again, all relatively new, but the actual skill level, the wrestling ability of these people, these guys, and the characters that people are coming up with, the matches they're putting on, the stories they're telling, they're huge. And it really is a scene that needs to burst and just to try and escape more out of Yorkshire, out more at the northeast and across the north of England and down south as well. It's something that I find amazing that how strong the scene is in this area. And there's little pockets of people breaking out, but I think once people start seeing these, and places like 1PW are a big platform for people to get seen, which is why I'm so grateful that I get to have that opportunity to be seen on those. But I think once people start seeing it, it's going to be, hopefully, in an ideal world, the next big hotbed of talent and of shows. But I can't speak.
It's exciting. It is exciting. And like I say, with the likes of Nathan Cruz, who I've had on the show, he's a big advocate and kind of championing the scene in that area. I've had Reese and Rogan, as you said, and Scott Bell on the show, and so many others. It is a fantastic. I called it a growing scene, but it is a fully developed scene. But I think there's a lot of exciting things happening within the promotions there, and a lot of talent that I'm pleased to see are branching out and getting onto more and more people's radar by the day, including yourself, Ace. But I want to take a kind of a trip back in time and talk a little bit about when you were growing up a wrestling fan now, Ace, and kind of what turned you on to pro wrestling in the first instance. And we spoke a bit about your character, your persona, Ace Matthews. Were you a fan of the larger than life characters from back in the day, and did they inspire you somewhat? But tell us a bit about some of your early wrestling fandom memories.
Yeah, it was exactly as you could probably guess from seeing me as a wrestler. It was absolutely the characters that I bought into. It was that the competition. It wasn't necessarily watching what we now consider a 5-star match. It was getting behind my favorite wrestlers, getting behind The Rock, getting behind Chris Jericho at times there, getting behind Bret Hart and Sting. So it was the late 90s, early 2000s that was my big boom when I was enjoying watching wrestling. And for me, it didn't matter what happened in a match or how how good the match was. It was the fact that I wanted The Rock to beat Triple H, or I wanted Stone Cold to beat Vince McMahon, or that's what it was. And it was a similar thing to watching England in the World Cup, is something where I'm a football fan, but the whole country isn't necessarily football fans. But when you watch the World Cup, everyone's behind England, and it doesn't matter how badly we play, as long as we win that game, that's all that matters. And just having that draw to pull people in. And that's what my favorite thing about wrestling is, that you can have that ability to pull somebody in and make somebody care about something. Or in my case, sometimes they have the opposite and they're repulsed by me. And I mean, again, incorrectly so. Of course. But then that alternate, they want the other person to really beat me, which is very rarely happens. But yeah, it was watching the stories. Yeah,
absolutely. And how did you transition from being a wrestling fan to being a wrestling fan wanting to be a part of the business? And kind of, when did this journey start for you?
So when I was at school, I wanted to be a wrestler. And then I looked at wrestlers and I thought, I can't do that. I remember a time at school when we were talking about what we wanted to be, and someone else said that they wanted to be a wrestler, and everyone else laughed, and I was like, I'm not going to say anything. And then I think quite a similar thing a lot of people say is that you grow up, there was a little bit of a lull sort of around 16 to 18 where I didn't watch wrestling as much until I got back to university. I had a couple of friends that I lived with there who were big wrestling fans, and they pulled me right back into it again. We started going out to shows. And throughout this time as well, I was doing, like just for fun, like an acting group. And as I was there, there was a girl there whose brother was a wrestling referee. And she put me in contact with him. And I'd been Googling wrestling schools because I'd been thinking of this is the sort of thing that I'd like to do, but I don't know, it's quite hard to get into. How does anyone do this? And get into contact with him and going down, and being NGW that I'd gone down to. It was AJB, who was a referee there for a long time, and just stepping through the door and having a go was pretty much, and it was something that I took to really quickly. I really enjoyed doing it. I'd done some martial arts in the past, so a lot of sort of the roles and the movements and things were quite similar, so I could pick things up really quickly. And then Nathan is an excellent teacher there, and took me under his wing, and never looked back from there. Apart from sort of working in America at the time as well, but then again, I found a school over there that was near me. Worked out a deal with them that I could work with for the 10 months I had left there. So I started off for the first maybe month with Nathan, disappeared across to America for the next 10 months, and then came back across here, and I've been sort of fully in the UK since then.
Absolutely. Now, I want to talk a bit more about NGW in a moment, because you've obviously got some highlights there, some career highlights. But now, in my research, and feel free to kind of correct me if I'm wrong, but one of your early matches, so I don't know kind of how far into your wrestling career this was, but a short-lived promotion called Monkey Madness Wrestling. And I don't know if you know where I'm going to go with this, but a certain match involving yourself, Damien Dunn, Ryan Smile, and a certain bruiserweight, Pete Dunne, or Butch, as he's now known in WWE. What can you tell us about this match, and how early on was this match in your career then, Ace?
So that technically was my first ever match.
Wow. Can you believe it, with the names involved? Unbelievable.
Exactly, yeah. People always find that amazing. So technically it was. I had done a Rumble before that, for NGW on a holiday park, and I'd started the match with Dara Diablo so that I got to have a little bit of chance wrestling with him before we went into the Rumble. And that it was Nathan Cruz who got me there. He was keen on having me debut, and that was on a Wednesday night. And Matt Myers was meant to be on the show and had pulled out. So Nathan said, "Get your gear, meet me at such and such place, and we're going to go do the show." So I was like, yep, cool. I'd had my gear already, I had my boots, I had everything ready to go. So yeah, it took me there. I found out what match I was in. I was terrified, especially with them being big names, or at the time they're big names, very good wrestlers.
Even back then, 2015, they were already established names on the UK scene.
They were. They were all people that I knew, that I didn't know personally, but I'd seen, I'd heard a lot about, and then I was in a 4-way as well, and I was like, oh my God, this is terrifying, but this is awesome. And I ended up working pretty much exclusively with Pete throughout the match, who just took care of me like an absolute trooper. Got me through there, through everything. I think we wrestled in front of about 25 people, which was still amazing. But it was also a Wednesday night in York on a show called Monkey Madness, but I can't thank them enough for giving me that opportunity. And then ended up getting paid for it as well, which was brilliant. And yeah, just wanted to do more. But every time I've seen Pete since, I mean, obviously I've not seen him for a few years. He's always been great with me, always had a little chat, and I doubt he'd remember who I am now, but at the time, back then, he would have a little chat and see how we were doing. And yeah, he was a great guy.
Yeah. And early on in your career, 2015, 2016, I think early on you had a match in NGW with Joe Hendry, started teaming with David Graves as Team Sports, and you even won a Battle Royal in 2016 at Proving Grounds, all within your first year or so with NGW. So we spoke about the match with Damien Dunn, Pete Dunn, Ryan Smile for Monkey Magic Wrestling there, but your first full year with NGW was I would say you're off to the races almost, a big learning curve, but some good experiences there as well.
Yeah, it really was. I mean, I've always been really lucky and really grateful that I've worked for most of my career, especially coming up, with really good, really strong talent, people who not only were able to help me in the ring, but just being around them and be able to learn from these people. And they were all very nice, down-to-earth guys as well. No one who was going to try and sort of big league me, being little Ace Matthews coming up. And yeah, I was so lucky to have that, and to have that support network around me, whether it's the people I was around every single day, or it was going out and suddenly getting to wrestle Joe Hendry. Yeah, it was brilliant.
Yeah, mind-blowing, absolutely mind-blowing. And I'm going to skip ahead a little bit here, because your second stint, officially, your second stint with NGW around 2018 saw you win a fatal 4-way qualified match for the Proving Grounds title, which you eventually went on to win against a certain Conor Renshaw. We now know him nowadays as Scotty Rourke. So definitely, a couple of years on, some signs of progression here. And you probably felt a little bit more established, a little bit more developed, a little bit more confident as a talent in 2018, I should imagine.
Yeah, definitely. And again, I was still babyface then as well. And I was babyface. So I was transitioning the Ace Matthews character, or the roots of the character that you know now, in other places. But there, that was a really good opportunity for me there to continue and to keep pushing as a babyface there. In Hull, Beverley, sort of the surrounding area, I was getting awesome reactions. That was really fun. It was great to be in that sort of spot. I was just on a little aside there. Conor Renshaw now, I've been working for a company in the Northeast called Avant Garde, which is a really cinematic sort of alternative style wrestling. It's very character driven, and he's been doing and it's brilliant. But he's been doing a character called Punch there, who is silent.
Of course, yes.
He pulls it off so well. I mean, I hadn't seen him since before COVID, until I'd gone back for their first show. And yeah, it was awesome. Such a good character again, who should be trying to take that elsewhere as well as Avant Garde, where I mean, if you're in the area, go and have a look at that as well, because it's such a great little twist on your traditional wrestling show. But yeah, it was again great for people to have the faith in me to be that champion. And I did get to defend it a couple of times, but unfortunately it was on the day that I defended that title that I then snapped my Achilles later on in the same show whilst trying to fix a broken wrestling ring, that sent me out for 9 months or however long I was out for.
So I mean, obviously that put you on the shelf, and you were finding some momentum. Like I say, just winning the Proving Grounds title, like I say, and a couple of months later, you suffered your injury that kept you out for, I'd say, close to my records, it was over a year, but it could have been less than a year. And that must have been pretty devastating for you at the time, when you were just finding your feet, just getting some momentum behind you, having just won your first title as well, your first championship. And then you're on the sidelines for however many months, Ace. Not great when you're just finding your feet.
No, exactly. Just finding my feet and then all of a sudden lose them. And again, as part of team sports, Dave and I as a tag team were starting to do really well. We were breaking out of the Northeast. We were doing some shows in the Northwest, and we had some good stuff coming up for some bigger promotions as well. And then all of a sudden, within a few weeks, he did his ACL, I did my Achilles, and everything stopped there. We did have a good time. He used to come round and have a few barbecues with me while we were hobbling along. We'd be hopping around trying to set barbecues on fire and cook some burgers together there. But yeah, that was horrible. At the time, we were working at 3CW, and they kept us going as managers, and that was where Benji and Miles were taking over the wrestling whilst we were there barking orders on the side. So that was nice of them to keep us going and keep us in touch with wrestling at the time. But yeah, it's absolutely gutting. I mean, at the moment, Dara Diablo, he snapped his Achilles as well twice. And I know he's going through the exact same thing. And I know how bad it is when he's sat at home not able to do anything. But again, hopefully it can only lead to good things once he comes back, as when I came back. And and so
I want to stick with 3CW, and we brought these pictures up earlier, and of course there's yourself, David Graves, Miles Kamen, and of course Benji there, and I saw a clip possibly from your Instagram of when a certain Keith Lee was in the ring at 3CW. Now, you probably know where I'm going to go with this, but it was obviously yourself, David, and Benji in the ring trying to sign him up to your faction, and it didn't quite go so well for you. But this would have been maybe 2019, I'm guessing, possibly sooner.
It was just before he signed for NXT as well.
I was going to say it must have been around that time. But fantastic opportunity and experience for the three of you to kind of be involved in some action with the Limitless One. And like I say, all of you guys played it perfectly. But what are your memories of that time being in the ring with Keith Lee?
It was brilliant. I think he was wrestling Rampage Brown on that show, which was, as you can imagine, an incredible match. But yeah, I think it was we were just coming out doing all sorts we could just to wind the crowd up. And yeah, it was great for us for the promoters to let us do that to him. He was really chilled and let us go along with anything. And again, got to make him look great, throwing Benji on top of all of us. And yeah, especially looking back on it now as well, and looking at the people that we've worked with, just to say that we had that spot at one point there, and just sort of legitimizes some of the things that we've done. There was another time where I came out, and we were coming out for 3CW's birthday, and presented a birthday cake to I think Grado was in the ring at the time. The birthday cake had my face on it. As you know, if it's your birthday, what more would you want than a birthday cake with Ace Matthews' face on it? Unfortunately, Grado didn't want to eat the cake and threw my face through my own face. If I can find a video of that, I'll try and tweet that as well. But we had some really, really good times there at 3CW. It was a lot of fun. That was another good time there as well. Liam Slater and I used to drive up in a big van from Hull, either taking a ring or rigging or a cage, and we'd do all sorts of road trips. up there, and we'd be sort of taking part of the setup, going up there, getting to wrestle the shows afterwards, tearing it all down, and either driving off to another show that we're doing some sort of production for again there, or coming back at 3-4 in the morning, and then he was driving back off to Leeds or Sheffield, and I was coming back to Hull. And yeah, there were really good times just getting to travel and spend a lot of time in big venues. Yeah, it was a great time to be.
Absolutely. Let's jump to some questions from those that are watching at home, and thank everybody for watching, and for everybody that's sent in a question. From Dills Wrestling, watching via YouTube, where does Ace Matthews want to wrestle company-wise? So obviously you've been based around the north predominantly over the last 7 or 8 years. I'm guessing you wanted to spread your wings and branch out a little bit over the coming year or so, but are there particular companies, promotions that you maybe have your eye on, Ace?
Yeah, so I do want to spread out a lot more. North is a big one that I've been trying to just poke at a little bit, just to try and see if I can goad somebody into challenging me up there. And then as you've got on your hoodie, Progress is a place that I think would really appreciate the character, just appreciate being wound up a little bit. I think that Gene Money and I could do something there. I think that might be a good little angle to work with. And then a crossover in the Northwest as well. So I've worked for Future Shock many years ago. I'd love to go back across there, and TNT there, and just to try and get as many eyes as me as I can. But I think some of the places where I know that there's a very hot crowd who likes their favorites, I think would be good places where I think I could get a really good reaction from. Yeah.
Absolutely. And I think there's a lot of fantastic characters and personas, gimmicks on the UK scene. And I had Scott Garland on the podcast last year, and he said that the UK, he prefers to wrestle independent wrestling in the UK as opposed to the US because of the fantastic characters that are out there. And you are definitely kind of up there as one of the characters to look out for and to get on. Any show, I believe, could benefit from having an Ace Matthews on their show. One more question we've got via YouTube. Alex Perez, one question for Ace and one for John. Oh, here we go. What is the hardest bump that you've taken in your career? And John, will you do questions from Twitter? Of course, do questions from Twitter, but obviously I've not answered yours, but I will look out for it. But Ace, what's the hardest bump that you've taken in your career, if you can remember it?
So I'm gonna go for two. I'm going to go for one of the most recent, which I think you alluded to. I don't remember, but apparently Rampage Brown gave me a rather large pile driver at the last TIDAL show. The other one I'm going to go for is a bit of a freak one. I was wrestling at Butlins in maybe 2017, 2018. Adam Maxted gave me a drop kick that as I landed, he'd kicked me so hard as I landed, I tore my pec. So that technically is probably the hardest bump I've ever had. As I bumped, I tore my pec. That wasn't a nice one.
Yes, and his drop kicks are the most devastating I've ever seen, for sure. Let's have a quick. So we got some more questions from one of our listeners that reached out before we went live. From Richie, friend of the show. Who do you look up to as influences in wrestling? I think you may have mentioned one or two already, but you must have certain kind of inspiring figures that's been there throughout your career that really influenced you, or people that you look up to, Ace.
Yeah, so in terms of looking at big stars that you might see on WWE or somewhere that I've been sort of inspired me. Look, Kurt Angle, from a bit of the character perspective, Simon Dean, Mr. Perfect, really like Stunning Steve, Fit Finlay, and Marty Jones, again, from working with him as a coach, as you could pin on here, and then also watching some of his stuff back there. Now, Nathan Cruz is probably the biggest, given that he's the person who's given me the most coaching throughout my career. Liam Slater, as I said, is a coach at PPW and someone who I've spent a lot of time working with. Again, whether it's been wrestling related or we've been doing production shows on wrestling shows or MMA shows or boxing shows or all sorts of weird and wonderful things we used to do. And then again, people like Rampage Brown, who I've had many relationships with before. As I say, he's terrified of even shaking my hand. But I mean, he's the best, isn't he? So yeah, they're probably the biggest people that I've looked up to on a personal level.
Yeah, absolutely. And Taj has been in touch once again. Thank you, Taj. Who are you going to lose the title belt to? So, a bit of an awkward question. I can probably guess your answer. How would you like to respond?
I mean, as Taj's personal title chief and the forever champion of the title fans, it leads me to believe that I'm probably never going to lose the title belt. Correct
answer. Absolutely. And Taj, again, ace for progress. Absolutely. I second that for sure. But before we ask you for your socials, Ace, just a few guests that are going to be popping up on the Wrestling with John's podcast between now and the end of April. And you certainly don't have to wait too long, because my next guest, what I'm going to quickly do is just get rid of the ticker there. My next guest is actually going to be next Tuesday the 25th of April. None other than Niwa will be coming on to the Wrestling with John's podcast live Tuesday the 25th of April, 8 p.m. UK time live. A fantastic guest I've had the opportunity to see and to speak to Niwa quite a lot in 2023 already, so we'll have a lot of cool stories. But he's got a rich history from wrestling, obviously in the UK, New Zealand and across Mexico, so can't wait to see what Niwa has to say for himself on next Tuesday. Just 5 days time. And then that same week I have RP Davies coming on to the show Thursday the 27th, 2 days later. So we've got a lot of prep to get in between now and then. But RP Davies doing some great stuff for TNT Extreme, for Ignition, of course, for Odyssey Pro Wrestling and various other groups in the Northwest. Can't wait to speak to Ryan, RP Davies very, very soon. That'll be next Thursday, a week today. So tons to look forward to on the Wrestling with John's podcast. And if you tune in to the Niwa interview on Tuesday, I will also be giving you my entire lineup for May, which will be including all the way up to episode 300. And I have a fantastic guest lined up for episode 300, but you will get to see who will be my guests for episodes 256 through to 301 in the month of May. But like I say, my guest today, Ace Matthews, my guest for episode 293. Where can my listeners, viewers, or fans of yours reach out to you if they want to say hi, get to know a bit more about Ace Matthews, and get to share some of your pearls of wisdom on any of your social platforms, Ace? And if it helps, I do have a little ticker somewhere. Here we go. Please go ahead. Tell us where we can reach out to you and say hi.
You can find me pretty much anywhere that you find social media, mostly Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, and TikTok. And all of them are at Let's Be Ace, all one word, no apostrophe. Let's Be Ace. Yeah. And
you do have some merch. We alluded to it earlier. I think I may have even brought up this slide. But it's the new T-shirt that you are sporting there, Ace. And of course, the very fine gentleman in the picture is sporting it also. But tell us a bit more about how and where we can get hold of your design there, your T-shirt, my friend.
Excellent. So to start off with, I will find a way of making sure it's on sale at 1PW this coming weekend. Even if you've got to, line up to see me outside while I'm selling them as trying to get to the show venue. Hopefully I'll be starting a big cartel store very soon, which has been on the cards for the last couple of weeks, but I haven't quite got out yet. But any show that I'm on, or you can always send me a message, and I can organise. That's how a lot of people manage to secure one with my pre-sale offer. And there might also be some 8x10s and badges that are available as well.
There we go. But Ace Matthews, it's been awesome having you on as a guest of Wrestling with Johners Live this Thursday evening. If you've got one final message, one final kind of message for your fans out there, or maybe, you know, some of your opponents, what message would you like to give us as a farewell statement, as a parting message from Ace Matthews?
I'd like to thank everybody for their support throughout my career, throughout the last couple of years in particular. And if you want to sort of come and see me, come and see what I'm all about, see what I can do for you, just try and come down to one of the shows that you'll find me on. And when you're there, make sure that you let me know I'm there, that you are there, that you make as much noise as you can, that you give me the biggest applause you can, that you stand up out your seats, you are clapping loudly. And so when I'm in the ring there, you can help me to help you. Because I'm Ace, and you can be too.
There we go. I think that deserves a massive thumbs up. But Ace Matthews, thank you so much for being an awesome guest, and we'll catch you at the shows, my friend. Thank you very much.
Thank you.